Josseli Barnica is one of at least 2 pregnant Texas women who died after doctors delayed emergency care. She told her husband that the medical team said it couldn't act until the fetal heartbeat stopped. The fetus was on the verge of coming out, its head pressed against her dilated cervix. She was 17 weeks pregnant and a miscarriage was in progress, doctors noted in hospital records. At that point, they should have offered to speed up the delivery or empty her uterus to stave off a deadly infection. But when Barnica's husband rushed to her side from his job on a construction site, she relayed what she said the medical team had told her. They had to wait until there was no heartbeat. It would be a crime to give her an abortion, he said. For 40 hours, the anguished 28-year-old mother prayed for doctors to help her get home to her daughter. All the while, her uterus remained exposed to bacteria. 3 days after she delivered, Barnica died of an infection. Barnica is one of at least 2 Texas women who ProPublica found lost their lives after doctors delayed treating miscarriages, which fall into a gray area under the state's strict abortion laws that prohibit doctors from ending the heartbeat of a fetus. Neither had wanted an abortion, but that didn't matter. Though proponents insist that the laws protect both the life of the fetus and the person carrying it, in practice, doctors have hesitated to provide care under threat of prosecution, prison time, and professional ruin. Her death was preventable, according to more than a dozen medical experts who reviewed a summary of her hospital and autopsy records. They called her case horrific, astounding, and egregious. The doctors involved in Barnica's care at HCA Houston Healthcare Northwest did not respond to multiple requests for comment on her case. In a statement, HCA Healthcare said, "Our responsibility is to be in compliance with applicable state and federal laws and regulations," and said that physicians exercise their independent judgment. The company did not respond to a detailed list of questions about Barnica's care. Like all states, Texas has a committee of maternal health experts who review such deaths to recommend ways to prevent them. But the committee's reports on individual cases are not public, and members said they have not finished examining cases from 2021, the year Barnica died. Reporters scoured death data, flagging Barnica's case for its concerning cause of death, sepsis, involving products of conception. They tracked down her family, obtained autopsy and hospital records, and enlisted a range of experts to review a summary of her care that ProPublica created in consultation with 2 doctors. Among those experts were more than a dozen OBGYNs and maternal-fetal medicine specialists from across the country, including researchers at prestigious institutions, doctors who regularly handle miscarriages, and experts who have served on state maternal mortality review committees or held posts at national professional medical organizations. After reviewing the 4-page summary, which included the timeline of care noted in hospital records, all agreed that requiring Barnica to wait to deliver until after there was no detectable fetal heartbeat violated professional medical standards because it could allow time for an aggressive infection to take hold. They said there was a good chance she would have survived if she was offered an intervention earlier. If this was Massachusetts or Ohio, she would have had that delivery within a couple hours, said Dr. Susan Mann, a national patient safety expert in obstetric care who teaches at Harvard University. Many noted a striking similarity to the case of Savita Halapavener, a 31-year-old woman who died of septic shock in 2012 after providers in Ireland refused to empty her uterus while she was miscarrying at 17 weeks. When she begged for care, a midwife told her, "This is a Catholic country." The resulting investigation and public outcry galvanized the country to change its strict ban on abortion. But in the wake of deaths related to abortion access in the United States, leaders who support restricting the right have not called for any reforms. In lawsuits, court petitions, and news stories, dozens of women have said they faced dangers when they were denied abortions starting in 2021. One suffered sepsis like Barnica, but survived after 3 days in intensive care. She lost part of her fallopian tube. Lawmakers have made small concessions to clarify 2 exceptions for medical emergencies, but even in those cases, doctors risk up to 99 years in prison and fines of $100,000. They can argue in court that their actions were not a crime, much like defendants can claim self-defense after being charged with murder. To Barnica, an immigrant from Honduras, the American dream seemed within reach in her corner of Houston, a neighborhood filled with restaurants selling El Salvadoran pupusas and bakeries specializing in Mexican conchas. She found work installing drywall, saved money to support her mother back home, and met her husband in 2019 at a community soccer game. A year later, they welcomed a big-eyed baby girl whose every milestone they celebrated. "God bless my family," Barnica wrote on social media, alongside a photo of the trio in matching red and black plaid. "Our first Christmas with our princess. I love them." Barnica longed for a large family and was thrilled when she conceived again in 2021. Trouble struck in the second trimester. On September 2, 2021, at 17 weeks and 4 days pregnant, she went to the hospital with cramps, according to her records. The next day, when the bleeding worsened, she returned. Within 2 hours of her arrival on September 3rd, an ultrasound confirmed bulging membranes in the vagina with the fetal head in the open cervix, dilated at 8.9 centimeters, and that she had low amniotic fluid. The miscarriage was in progress, the radiologist wrote. When Barnica's husband arrived, she told him doctors couldn't intervene until there was no heartbeat. The next day, Dr. Shirley Lima, an OB on duty, diagnosed an inevitable miscarriage. In Barnica's chart, she noted that the fetal heartbeat was detected and wrote that she was providing Barnica with pain medication and emotional support. In a state that hadn't banned abortion, Barnica could have immediately been offered the options that major medical organizations, including international ones, say is the standard of evidence-based care. Speeding up labor with medication or a dilation and evacuation procedure to empty the uterus. "We know that the sooner you intervene in these situations, the better outcomes are," said Dr. Stephen Porter, an OB/GYN in Cleveland. But Texas' new abortion ban had just gone into effect. It required physicians to confirm the absence of a fetal heartbeat before intervening unless there was a medical emergency, which the law did not define. It required doctors to make written notes on the patient's condition and the reason abortion was necessary. The law did not account for the possibility of a future emergency, one that could develop in hours or days without intervention, doctors told ProPublica. Barnica was technically still stable, but lying in the hospital with her cervix open wider than a baseball left her uterus exposed to bacteria and placed her at high risk of developing sepsis. Experts said. The scenario felt all too familiar for Dr. Leila Zahidi-Spung, a maternal fetal medicine specialist who used to work in Tennessee and reviewed a summary of Barnica's records at ProPublica's request. "Abortion bans put doctors in an impossible position," she said, forcing them to decide whether to risk malpractice or a felony charge. After her state enacted one of the strictest bans in the country, she also waited to offer interventions in cases like Barnica's until the fetal heartbeat stopped or patients showed signs of infection, praying every time that nothing would go wrong. It's why she ultimately moved to Colorado. "The doctors treating Barnica absolutely didn't do the right thing," she said, but she understood why they would have felt totally stuck, especially if they worked at a hospital that hadn't promised to defend them. Even 3 years after Barnica's death, HCA Healthcare, the hospital chain that treated Barnica, will not disclose whether it has a policy on how to treat miscarriages. Around 4 a.m. on September 5th, 40 hours after Barnica had arrived, doctors could no longer detect any heart activity. Soon after, Lima delivered Barnica's fetus, giving her medication to help speed up the labor. Dr. Joel Ross, the OB/GYN who oversaw her care, discharged her after about 8 more hours. The bleeding continued, but when Barnica called the hospital, she was told that was expected. Her aunt grew alarmed 2 days later when the bleeding grew heavier. "Go back," she told her niece. On the evening of September 7th, Barnica's husband rushed her to the hospital as soon as he got off from work. But COVID-19 protocols meant only one visitor could be in the room with her, and they didn't have a babysitter for their 1-year-old daughter. So he left and tried to get some sleep. "I fully expected her to come home," he said, but she never did. Her family planned 2 funerals, one in Houston and another in Honduras. 9 days after her death, Barnica's husband was processing his shock, learning how to be a single dad and struggling to raise funds to bury his wife and the son he had hoped to raise. Meanwhile, Lima was pulling up Barnica's medical chart to make an addition to her records. The notes she added made one point abundantly clear. "When I was called for delivery," she wrote, "the fetus no longer had detectable heart tones. Now he is raising a 5-year-old daughter with the help of Barnica's younger brother. Every weekend, they take her to see her grandmother, who knows how to braid her hair in pigtails. All around their home, he keeps photos of Barnica so that the little girl grows up knowing how much her mother loved her. He sees flashes of his wife when his daughter dances. She radiates the same delight. When asked about Barnica, he can't get out many words. His leg is restless, his eyes fixed on the floor. Barnica's family calls him a model father. He says he's just doing his best. When fear of prosecution silences doctors and delays care, real people pay the price, sometimes with their lives. Every patient deserves timely, evidence-based treatment, dignity, and respect, no matter the circumstances. Subscribe to the White Coat Crimes for more shocking true stories, medical crimes, medical mysteries, and the dark side of healthcare you were never meant to see.